I work at a university library. I'm afraid one of the students isn't alive. Heather always struck me as a weird kid, although a very sweet one. She seemed way younger than her peers, like the runt of a litter, but I more than once overheard other students talking about her being some sort of teenage genius. As it happens to most brilliant people, she didn't seem to pay a lot of attention to the world around her, but she tried her best. I heard you had a nasty car accident, Miss Thompson. Are you too hurt? She asked me just the other week, her eyes full of genuine concern. I think you're mistaking me for another librarian, darling, I replied, then went back to reading my own book. Our uni was a big complex, with 4 major libraries with 3 or more librarians each, and a few smaller ones. Funnily, all of us lived up to the librarian stereotype very well, 30 or 40 something, tortoise eyeglasses, hair in a perfect bun, a pencil dress topped with a cardigan. There wasn't much to do these days, as our collection was completely catalogued in the uni's app, so we were there mostly to handle paperwork and help with the restricted section, one of the only places that remained completely free from the modern world's scrutiny. Most students had no interest in the library, let alone in the forbidden books, so I had all the time in the world to just go around hissing SHHH, if I wanted to. It was the perfect job for any introvert, a quiet place with little to no interaction. Lately, my days consisted of silently watching over people. Heather, I heard, was pursuing a scientific career, but she always had a dreamy look on her face when she read our books. We were located in the history department. I only became concerned when she started asking for witchcraft books from the restricted section. Oh, I'm just doing some research for fun. Interesting how women turn to magic because it seems to be the easier way for us to gain power, huh? She gave me a half smile. She was so pale and clearly concerned about something big. I couldn't help but peek over her shoulder a little. How to create a new human body. Wax, it must amount to 2/3 of the person's original weight. An object they held dear in life, this will bind the soul. The ashes from any book, see above how to ensure that you obtain this material minimizing loss. As much hair from the subject as possible, this ingredient will give the new body verisimilitude. Please remember that the above is meant to give a new body to a person that's barely clinging to life. If your subject has already passed, it's crucial to add their own ashes and blood from a living fox. In this case, the fox will act as a recipient for the soul, and must stay beside the person at all times. Obviously, this was all bullshit. I'm a rational, 33 years old woman after all. I know better. Still, Heather was so pale, her lips were so bluish, that I feared that she was either terminally ill or already dead. Which is a ridiculous thought, but, come to think of it, I didn't see her interacting with anyone else but me in the last couple of weeks. Besides, she was a smart kid. If she was dedicating this much time to such things, maybe they held more than historical interest. I was intrigued and had too much time in my hands. My fiancé had been staying at the hospital with his sick mother lately and I didn't have any pets or roommates, so I had to admit things were a little too lonely. So, over the next few days, I helped Heather get some ancient witchcraft books, then casually walked behind her, looming like a ghost, stealthy as a cat. There was no doubt she was particularly interested in reviving people through old sorcery. The dark circles under her eyes grew bigger by the day, her hair was matted and tangled, and I started convincing myself that she looked like she was rotting alive. It was a Friday when I couldn't hold back anymore and decided to ask her if she was dying. I gave the poor girl a jump scare. "Oh, it's you, Miss Thompson," she muttered. "No, I'm not dying. This is for someone I know. They must be really important to you, then I replied. Well, we're not really close, but I think her dying now would be horribly unfair, she replied, biting her incredibly pale lips. Looking closer, I realized she looked so bad because she hadn't been sleeping or eating properly, focused on her research. "You're a good girl, Heather," I praised her, then started leaving. "Miss Thompson." "Yes. The dying person is you." I laughed. "I'm not ill, sweetie. Thanks for worrying." "Yes, you're not ill. You're in a coma with no hope of returning. And your body is not actually here." Heather took me to the hospital, where I saw my own body fading, a feeling so eerie it's hard to explain. There was no doubt it was me, badly injured and hanging to life by a thread. When you've been in a coma for weeks like I had, it's hard to come back from it. And even if you do, your muscles will malfunction and your body will be so weak that you're prone to catching a myriad of infections and dying anyway. My sister is a nurse here. That's how I found out about you, Heather explained, in a whisper, as she cut a huge piece of my hair. I couldn't stop staring at my physical body. It was so pale, nearly lifeless. Unfortunately, the ritual can only extend your life for a few years, a decade at best. And it can't be done a second time because it won't work with your wax body. I nodded, paying close attention to her. "All done here," she carefully placed the hair inside a Ziploc bag. "Let's go to your place to gather the other ingredients. I bought the wax in advance." "Are you sure you want to do this for me?" I asked. "Isn't it something evil? Unnatural?" "Oh, evil and unnatural is what they tried to do to you. You'll understand when you meet my sister. But first, let's create your new vessel." My new body was successfully created. I can't recall a lot of details because my soul was being pinned to the wax and the process can be overwhelming to one's senses, but I remember hearing Heather chanting and a lot of bright lights. Moving around with it felt natural, almost like it was my original body. However, it came with a number of limitations. Heather recited them to me after I spent a few hours learning how to move around in it. Any exam that tries to look inside your body will be unsuccessful and show nothing. You need to avoid getting sick at all costs if you don't want to be studied as a medical aberration. Your body cannot take more than 5 minutes of sunlight a day, and sunscreen doesn't work. The only way is staying indoors as much as possible, and always protecting your face with a hat. You can make your body turn to dust at will and reappear in another spot within your view. However, you'll be even more vulnerable to sun for a week after each time. Your body will immediately melt if it touches salt water, hot water, or acid substances. Keep that in mind even for trivial tasks and always wear gloves just in case. At least once a month, you need to ingest wax to strengthen your body. A single candle will suffice. "Is that all?" I asked. "It isn't that bad. My sister Susan will explain the last rule to you," Heather announced, and a woman who looked just like her but several years older and in white scrubs entered the room. "Miss Laura Thompson, I'm happy to see you well," she greeted me, and we exchanged formalities. "You must recall that your fiancé's mother was very ill before your accident, right?" I nodded. "The details are irrelevant, but that family has been doing it for decades, literally stealing people's lives. They approach someone, establish a bond, then suck their life force, leaving their body as an empty shell. That's what your fiancé and his parents," she did the air quotes, "have done to you." "Like vampires?" "Are they vampires?" It was all my brain could gather. Heather bit her lip and nodded. and what it has to do with the last rule. The last rule says that you owe a favor to whoever gives your life back. Anything they want to, Susan replied. Heather was sweating and looked so guilty I felt bad for her. And we want you to dispose of them. Strangely, it didn't seem an unreasonable request. After all, they pretty much killed me. Why shouldn't I defend myself? And what you have to profit from it? I asked, my brain finally functioning again. You see, Susan smirked, and, in an instant, her sclera turned yellow, her irises turned crimson and her skin became purplish, with a leathery texture. Her canines were huge and her whole presence emanated menace and malice. We are rivals. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more creepy videos.